Okay.
I need you to tell me an embarrassing story.
Okay.
Humble yourself, because nobody. You're not humble. Nobody talks
Yes, he is.
Nobody talks to him. No, he's humble, but nobody talks about him humbly. It's just this guy up here, and we're all down here. I mean, especially you. You're way down there.
Way down there. Yeah.
But
Charles helped me build up a little bit, but I mean,
he's got a long way to go.
Gotten there yet.
But tell us something, Charles. Tell us something that people don't know. Well, maybe they do know, but
They probably know.
that's
but,
not in the record book.
Yeah, well, I don't know if it's in the record books or not, but when I ran into the bridge there at Currituck, I'd been through that bridge, I don't know how many times, many times. And I was coming back, I went up to eat at that restaurant over on the other side of the bridge, over on the mainland
Green
side.
Tails. It was back when it was called Green Tails, I think, right?
Or was it
It
Point
was-
Harbor?
No, it was Marcella's.
Okay.
I don't know. Whatever it was called at the time. I went there and had lunch, and I didn't have but one beer. Everybody says, "Oh, you must have been drunk." I wasn't drunk. I had one beer, and I was coming back, and I stopped and along the way, and I saw what's the guy, cobia killer, his brother,
Beatson?
One of the Beatsons.
Beatson. Yeah,
Aaron's brother. Yeah.
Aaron's brother, Hunter Beatson.
That's right.
I stopped and talked to him a little bit. Came on up there, and I'm running about 30 knots, cruising along. And I knew this mark on the side of the piling. That is where I turned and go through. And without even thinking about it, I saw the mark on the piling, and I turned and went through. And when I went through, I looked up. And I'm still doing 30 knots. And as I looked up, I saw my tower. That first bridge the old bridge is lower than the new bridge. Well, I looked up, and I saw that new bridge, and my tower just cleared it. I went, oh, no. And I pulled her back on the throttle. As I pulled her back, that was the only thing I heard was a big explosion. And the tower caught the second bridge and ripped the whole center console out. And it come back and hit me in the teeth and knocked me out. But at least I had pulled back on the throttles. And when I come to, I'd already gone out and at an idle speed and circled around. And I come to, and I was back in the corner of the boat, and there was a bunch of water back there, and I guess that's what caused me to come to. And I looked up, and the tower's laying over in the water.
Sorry.
It's laughable now.
Donnie's just thinking about how this could have been.
Yeah, easily.
It wasn't funny then, but you can laugh now. But anyway, when I come back and I looked up, when I come to, I looked up, and I looked like I was going to hit the bridge again. So I jumped up and started to run up to the bow, and I wanted to get the bow down some too, and I started to run up to the bow, and I almost fell down again. I about passed out again. So I thought, man, I better not get up there. I'll fall overboard. So I bumped through the bridge again. I got on the other side, and Hunter saw me. Hunter said he knew something was wrong, and he come running up there. First thing he looked at me, he says, "You got to go to the hospital." I had blood all over me and everything. And I said, "No, I got to get my boat home." And so finally he wanted to take me off the boat and leave the boat. And I said, "I can't do that." So he towed me home, and I was going in and out a little bit on the way, but I was trying to, I get up on the bow to keep it up, because of course it ripped all of it out, and it ripped the wires off my pumps. And so my pumps wasn't working, So the water that was in there was filling it up. So I ended up he finally got me to Collington Harbor. And when I pulled in there was two EMS guys there that were down there with their families. And they come up there and they looked at me and they said, "Man, we got to take you to the hospital." And I said, "Not until I get this boat out of the water." They said, "Fuck that boat. You need to get to the hospital." And I said, "I got to get this boat out of the water or I'm going to lose it." So I got the boat out of the water.
Oh my God.
And then I got my truck. I had the trailer on it, and I got it in there, and I got the boat on the trailer with some help. They helped me tip all the guys there helped me tip the center console back upright. But it was setting way up off, because it was ripped out of the deck. It was setting up off the deck. So, of course, I couldn't drop the tower. I got in the truck, and I started driving home, and each one of those 14-foot wires that come overhead, I had to get out, stop the truck, because it was going to catch my thing, get out and go up there and push the wire over top of it. And the third one I did was just before I got to my house. And if it had been another one, I couldn't have done it, because I was crawling up on the side.
Your house anyway.
But I kept having blood all down in front of my shirt. And I'd wipe my mouth, and there wasn't any blood there, and I couldn't figure it out. Finally, I realized that I had a hole in my chin right here, and it was bleeding out of my chin down in front of me.
Damn.
Anyway, when I got home and pulled the boat in the yard, and of course, in my wise thing. I knew a girl, Donna Newton, who was a nurse, and I felt like it. And Carl Newton, he was my buddy. I said, well, I'll go over there and Donna fix me up. Well, as soon as she saw me, she said, you go to the hospital right now. You are not, well, I can't do anything. Anyway, I went down to, finally ended up down at, Newton drove me down to Nags Head Hospital. And when they found out I'd been knocked out, they didn't want to do anything. You know,
They want to fly you out?
Yeah, they wanted to fly me out, and I wasn't going to fly out. I was tired. I was worn out.
Just want to go.
So I went home. And my sister and her husband come pick me up. And the next day, her husband, Neil Lloyd, took me to the hospital in Norfolk and went to a specialist. And I had all these CAT scans that they had done at the hospital, you know, at Nags Head. So I handed them to him and go in there. And of course, by then I had no wrinkles at all, face all swollen up, couldn't hardly talk, eyes had almost shut because it'd been all the whole 24 hours, you know. And so he gets in there and the guy looks, he's about 6'4", 6'5", but he looks like he's about 18 years old. He looked really young, you know. And he sits down to the computer, and I get in this chair, which is like a big dentist chair, and I'm sitting there watching him. And he puts those CAT scans in there, and he looks at them, and he looks at me, you know, and he looks back at them. He did that 2 or 3 times, didn't say anything, you know, and I could see the look on his face. I knew it wasn't good. Shit, I was hurt. And he got up, and he went and got this other guy, and he come in, another doctor, and they both sat there and looked at it, and they looked at me, and they looked at it. Finally, he said, you know how lucky you are? I said, yes. And then I do, you know. I couldn't hardly talk.
Misguided Fishing Podcast, supported by TW's Bait and Tackle, Captain Frank's Hot Dogs and Fine Sandwiches, Ballastol, multi-purpose lubricant, and Outer Banks Distilling, purveyors of Kill Devil Rum. And now, Misguided.
It was a very embarrassing thing, terrible thing.
Oh, that's so...
And it'll humble you real quick. You know, I'm supposed to be a boatman all my life and everything, and go through the wrong part of the bridge and do a job on myself.
Charles, without a doubt, that's best embarrassing story I've ever heard on here. I mean, we're 60 episodes into it now, man. I got done 60, and that's by far the best. I mean,
it was terrible.
You wouldn't go to the hospital.
And, you know, you make a mistake, you make a mistake. You know, it's kind of like I try to compare it to my angler Stuart Campbell going over the stern. He was the best angler by far I'd ever seen in my life, and I've seen a lot of really good anglers, and he was the best. And he got the swivel wrapped around the tip, snatched him out of the cockpit over the stern. Yeah. So it can happen to anybody, you know. Mistakes
absolutely.
Can happen.
Yeah. Well, it's like Oregon Inlet. I mean, anybody can run aground there.
If you haven't, it's just because you haven't been out there.
Right.
It's just a matter of time.
Exactly. It happened to me one of my first maiden voyages.
Weekly. Not weekly, daily, but weekly getting pulled off.
Yeah. People ask me, said, when you get out there, do you need local knowledge? I said, local knowledge is that morning. If you went out that morning, that's the best local knowledge you have.
All right. I'm gonna go ahead and roll with it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna roll with it. I don't even know where to start. Well, I better let you start because it's your guest. You've really pulled. Jack has brought nothing to the table in this podcast. And seriously, in 2 years, he's brought nothing to the table until the night. He just upstaged me.
Oh, geez.
I mean, dude.
I know. Well, we've been talking about, Charles, how we this needs to be like a 3-parter, you know what I mean? But we're going to try and condense it into one. Charles Perry with us today. Got a new book out. I don't want to blow smoke up your ass too much because you get it all the time, but probably one of my idols and a lot of people's idols in the sport fishing industry, a sport fishing giant right here on our show.
Without a doubt.
Cool. I've just outlived everybody. That's all.
I don't even know what. So hold on. Can I ask? Yeah, I'm going to ask.
Yeah, ask it.
How old are you?
77.
Shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
Are you really?
Yeah, 77.
I don't believe that for a second.
Well, you may as well.
Still in the cockpit.
I'll show you my license.
You'll still wiring them?
I did last year. Every chance I get. Last year when I was in Hawaii, they let me pull on one by 455. It was pretty nice. Good chance to do it.
Yeah, he's wired too on my boat. They weren't, but they were pretty whooped out. Single screw boat. But
all right, let's get this rolling, man. Charles, first, tell me about the book. Just say
real briefly. It's something that you know, Finghetti, and you should probably have him on here because he's a good one for that.
Brown's been on.
Yeah. Kenneth?
No, Brown Gaddy.
Oh, Brown Gaddy.
Yeah.
Oh, you had him on here. Yeah. Anyway, Finn and I have talked about this about, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. And it kind of, we started out doing it, and then a lot of people got involved. They heard what we were going to do and they wanted to do it. So we were going to build a museum. And well, it turned out that to do that, we had this meeting down there at their welcoming center, and we had lawyers and all kinds of people there. And anyway, they decided that that we had to start out by raising $30 million. And Finn and I looked at each other and went like, whoa, we didn't have this in mind at all. Anyway, that kind of fell apart.
We said, let's just write a book.
One of the reasons it fell apart is because we couldn't find any land to buy to build a museum. Anyway, that all fell apart. So Finn and I still kept talking about it. And we said, you know, we need to do something, start smaller and work toward that. But he said, we need to have something, we need to get something on written paper about the old times, about how it all got started, the sport fishing industry, because it's such a big industry here in this county. Mm-hmm. And of course, the boat building industry, how it developed into that. And so we decided to try to do interviews with a lot of the older guys, and which is something I should have done a long time ago, because I'm one of the older guys, but I know all of them. And so when I go to visit, like Captain Moon Tillich's 94 years old, and when I called him up and said, Captain Moon, does you mind if I come by and interview you, you know? And he said, Charles Perry. He said, it rings a bell. He said, come on by, I'm right here. Well, when I got to his house, I got out of the truck. First thing he said, before I ever got up to him, he was out in the driveway in his wheelchair. I know who your daddy is. He's a hell of a damn drum fisherman. He can catch a drum, he said. And he went right on from there. And I mean, his memory of things in the back, he named all the boats that was in Dykster's Ditch. He named who owned them, what kind of engines they had. One of them, he was telling me what kind of wheel it turned. I said, come on, Captain Moon, you remember what kind of wheel it turned? I mean, what size wheel, you know? It was just phenomenal. And guys like Bobby Scarborough, when I interviewed him, Bob was truly glad to see me, and I was glad to see him, you know. And so I should have been visiting these people a lot more often. They're older fishermen that I have all the respect in the world for. That's how I learned from them, you know. And Captain Tony Tillett, I mean, I wouldn't be where I'm at today, or I wouldn't have done what I've done if it hadn't been for Tony, you know. So that's what I did. I interviewed 22 of the people, and I didn't feel I was capable enough to write this. And so a girl named Bethany Brashear had written a book called Big Rock, and she had interviewed me down in Morehead City. So she, when Finn asked me if I knew, I told him I didn't think I was quite capable of writing it. He said, did I know somebody that could? And I said, Bethany. And he said, where's she at? And I said, in Greenville. He said, let's go see her. So the next day we went and had lunch with her in Greenville. And when we left, we talked about it, and we felt like she could do the job. So she did, and I feel like she did a really good job.
Can you
put our stories together?
People want the book. Where do they get it?
The best place to get it is online at bigfishbetterboats.com. And bigfishbetterboats.com has where you can get it, a section where you can write how you want it inscribed, or if you want it signed to somebody or things like that, and you can pick it up, or you can have it shipped to you, and it's all there on the website. So it's Big Boats. That's the easiest one. Now locally, it's at TW's, and it's at Ocean East and down at Hatteras, at quite a few places down there too. So
you can put it in the Oregon Inlet this summer?
Oregon Inlet will have it when apparently that's going to be operated by Ocean East, I think.
Okay.
That's what I've heard. And so if they will, it'll be in there. I went down and asked them about it, and they were a little reluctant to do anything right now.
I understand.
It's in transition.
Yes, sir.
Place, yeah.
Yeah.
And what's cool about this, Charles, and you can tell us more about it, but I mean, modern day sport fishing as we know it today all started right here. Well, I mean, more or less, right? I mean, is there anybody else? I mean, the big game blue marlin fishing, Hatteras, North Carolina, the way I understand it, is there anywhere else that was before that? What would your
There might have been some fish caught in South Florida at some point, but for when it opened up back in the late 30s and even before the war, they were looking for blue marlin there, you know, and it's a bit in there about the early years that they had a competition, but they they challenged the Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico was known for its blue marlin fishing, so it was a kind of a challenge. And they had a big tournament where one side faced off against the other. And so some of the people from Hatteras went to San Juan and fished down there, and then they come up here and fish.
Really?
Yeah.
Never heard that.
Yeah, it's written up in the book. It's pretty cool.
Oh, that's really cool, man.
Yeah.
So the book is just stories.
It's pretty much stories mingled in with the history
Okay.
of how it all. And of course, the guides that ran the boats, the older captains, and Sheldon Midget and Buddy Kennedy, and of course Homie, and all of the guys that Captain Warren O'Neill was kind of the starting of it all. And they all had worked for him at some time, most of them. And if they hadn't, they had at least fished their boats, and they felt as they fish them each year, they felt like that they could tweak them a little bit in the next build and build a better boat. So that's one reason I've got it called Big Fish, Better Boats, because there's a lot of big fish caught here, and including a world record at Hatteras and then another world record at Oregon Inlet. At Hatteras, it was 8:10 way a long time ago, and that lasted for quite a while. And then Harry Baum's 11:43, I think, was a world record also.
Yeah.
So, the place has really turned out a lot of big fish and
a lot of great captains. I mean, right?
Because I've been fortunate enough to travel a lot throughout the world. Any place I've ever been fishing, if once they knew I was from Oregon Inlet, it was like a shoe-in. It was just you were accepted like that. You've done that yourself,
Yeah. It was the same for me.
It's well recognized.
Well, go ahead and beat on your chest for a second, because you opened the door. I mean, seriously, you opened the door for knuckleheads like him to be able to go over to Australia and drop names. And I mean, you're the guy that started that for guys like him.
I didn't start it. Peter Wright was there. He was first American there, and he was there before I was. But of course, I met Peter when I first went there, and fished with him in the second year I was there. The first year I fished on the Panawanica and fished with Charlie Hayden. And Charlie Hayden was one of my mentors, and he was terrific. And he showed me everything. And Charlie would even sharpen a knife. I had to do it just like he wanted me to. Charlie made me do everything exactly right. But wherever he turned that whole season, I was his shadow. He turned, he bumped into me. So the big fish I caught was not. I didn't wire the biggest fish I've ever caught, but I gaffed it because Charlie wired the fish. You know, so it was still part of it anyway.
Is that going to be your trivia question, or can we ask how big it was?
Oh, it's 1,417,417.
Damn. Wow.
It was that was the first year I was there in '73 too, and it was
1,400 pounds.
Yeah, that's a lot of fish.
That's a lot of fish.
And the 2 days after that, we went right back to Linden Bank, which is one of the areas that they fish mostly out of Cairns, or the first areas out of Cairns. And the second 2 days after we caught the 1417, we had a fish on that Charlie and I both, and the owner of the boat, Garrick Agnew, felt like it was quite a bit bigger. I got no idea how big it was, but it was bigger than 1417. And it jumped about 20 times at long rigger distance, so we had a really good look at it. It was a monster, and there was no stopping it. Yeah.
All the ones.
Panawanica, the Panawanica is that because there's still Panawanica? I believe it's the original one, correct?
It is the original one, and the guy that owns it now just sent me a text.
Simon Carossi,
yes,
correct?
Sir. Yes, him.
Yeah.
He
so
just
I worked
sent me
for
a
Simon.
text. Oh, did you?
I worked for Simon. He's the one that really gave me my shot. I was walking the docks with my tail between my legs, thinking I was going to have to come home, and he was there, and he had heard about me, and he told me to come on, that he had a good first crewman.
That's the first boat I worked on too.
Yeah, so
that's interesting.
At the time it wasn't the Panawanica. He was running different private boats, and then I ended up going back and fishing a full season with him on a different boat. But I just remember that Panawanica sat at Cairns, and every time Simon and I would walk by it, he would just drool over it. Absolutely, and somehow he got it.
Yeah, well, he apparently, from what I understood, he was a reupholstered antique cars or something. Anyway, he apparently made the boat spotless. People tell me that boat is just pristine.
Keeps a great. I mean, mostly a private boat guy. He would do the private boat into the reef, and so really good about all that stuff. Old cars, old boats, that kind of thing. So
I made it. After I worked with him that first year, I fished with Garrick another year, and I went around to Perth and flew to Perth and got on the boat and made a trip around the western side of Australia and across the top of the Gulf of Cappateria and back to Cairns, 3,400 miles.
Back then on that boat.
On that boat, 8 days. And we had a mast on the boat laying on one of the sides, because if you broke down, there was nobody to call.
Right.
There was nobody to call. And if something happened, we had to set sail. And so we never had to set sail when coming around. But when we got over to Kansas, I said, Garrick, I got to see this thing under sail. It would sail. I was impressed. I mean, we put the mast up one day, and it would move on along pretty well. I mean, it was it was a survival thing, but if you broke down,
no, I mean, it's still up the northern part of Australia is still incredibly
But
remote.
that western side of Australia got some great fishing now.
Oh yeah, those guys are, man.
In that area
God, it's incredible the fishing they have. So what about? So you obviously Australia, and we'll get into how you got there. But you started fishing here, correct?
Absolutely. My father was one of the early fishermen out of Dykesters, and then he was one of the first fishermen, him and Uncle Herbert, to move boats down to Oregon Inlet.
Okay.
And I think John and Conley, they wrote a bit about it in the Carolina Flares. But anyway.
What year was that? Do you know?
I don't know. I'm not sure what year they moved down there.
Can it be decade?
It might be in the book. I'm not sure, but I can't remember. Anyway, it was, I started fishing with him when I was 6. And I told a lot of people that my mother was a church-going lady, and I went to church with her every Sunday, and I had one of those reef pins and 6 years underneath of it. I didn't miss a day of church for every Sunday until I turned 6, and that's when my daddy took me fishing. And I didn't go to church anymore. It was terrible. But I fished with him on the weekends from the time I was 6 until, right on through school and through university too, through a couple of years of school.
Right. And then you went to Vietnam. I think you told us that. And is that when you ultimately went to the war and then went down to Australia? And did you learn it? Had you heard about that fishery? Had you?
No, I had heard about it, but I say no. I hadn't heard anything definite about it. I just heard that there was fish in cans. At that time, I hadn't heard as much about it as after I came back, and I heard about it. But I did. When I got there, I'd only been there like 4 or 5 months, and you have to be there like 8 or 9 months or longer to get to Australia, because everybody wanted to go to Australia. And the guy that I was rooming with in Vietnam, the guy he was a head clerk at the company, this was his 3rd tour, and he'd never taken an R&R. So I talked him into going on R&R and we go on the buddy system. That way I got to go. I'd only been there about 4 or 5 months. And I went to Australia, which was great. And we went to Mooloolaba, which all the rest of the people hung out in Sydney and had all the hookers and all the stuff that, all the stuff that they were looking for.
King's Cross.
Yeah, King's Cross and Manly and all those. But we got off the plane and got on a domestic flight, flew to Brisbane, got on Skinner bus line and went to Mooloolaba. And when we got to Mooloolaba, I had already got in touch with my friend Bruce Shepard. He was living over there. He met us there, and we went surfing right then. Spent the whole time in Mooloolaba and Noosa Heads.
Yeah, surf there.
Yeah, and then we had some great surf. I mean,
that's a great spot.
When I was there, one time we were surfing from Tea Tree all the way out into Tea Tree, by Nationals all the way up to Main Beach.
Wow,
that's about a half a mile ride anyway. It's perfect seas.
Beautiful right-hand point. Probably wasn't as crowded then. Well, there were surfers down there.
Yeah, there were, but that time there was 8 of us there that day, and nobody had to get on your wave if you didn't want to. It was great. No, that was good. So that's the first time I went, and then I liked it so much I went back on R&R when I had only about a month left over in and both times I was almost not ready to go back. I mean, I was just about ready to stay because I was having so much fun, and I knew what I was facing going back. But anyway, I went back and did my time, and so I come back and went back to school for a year. And
in the States?
And yeah, I come back. I had gone 2 years to East Carolina, and so I come back, and I had a government scholarship to begin with because my father was a veteran of the First World War, and so the state of North Carolina had scholarships for veterans of any war really, and to qualify you had to financially not be able to go to school, that was no problem. And the other one was my grades had to be good enough that I got accepted by the school, which I did. And so I got a scholarship for the first couple of years. And then when I come back from Vietnam, I got the scholarship plus they paid me for my time from, being in Vietnam. So, and being in the service. So I was safe, and I wasn't quite as sociable as I was the first couple of years. So I ended up going to school and saving money. But it was tough because everybody in school was, at that time, this was 70, and they were talking about Vietnam, and everybody hated Vietnam, and they hated anybody that had been to Vietnam. So I didn't even want nobody to know that I had been.
Right.
And I just, when the subject came up, I walked away, because I didn't like it either, but I knew why. I had the reasons why, because I'd spent time there, and you would defend it even though, just because you'd been there, the people that were talking about it hadn't been there, so it was obvious. Well, they hated it for other reasons, for reasons that they didn't understand what it was all about. They didn't know the whole thing. And I didn't want to get in a conversation about it, so I just avoided it. Well,
before we go sell something, keep this thing going, can you tell me the story from Vietnam, from duck hunting?
Oh, yeah. When people start, which around here, you hear a lot of duck hunting people,
Yeah.
And they're always talking about, I killed so many ducks, and I always wait till I get there, and I say, well, I probably killed more ducks than you have in one shot. And then I tell them the story. When I used to travel, the second 6 months I was there, I was in a place called Capt, and we had about 12, 13 mile dirt road to travel, and it was through the marsh, just like our marsh here and everything. It was very similar, and they had gone in there and dug big holes, giant holes, and used that to build the road, so they every quarter of a mile or every 400 or 500 yards there was a big hole. And so we stopped one day.
With water in it, probably.
Yeah, there was water. It was marsh, but the holes had been dug out, and they used what they dug out of the holes to build the road. So they were all full of water. And we pulled up there one day to turn off the main road to head back to Cat Live, where our company was at. And I looked up there ahead, and it was just like a big cloud. And when I say a cloud, there must have been, I don't know, 300 or 400, maybe more ducks just went all into one of those holes, all in the same hole. They were pretty big holes, and when I saw it happen, I told this boy that was driving, I had a truck driver named Mark Simmendinger. He was a piece of work, too, to say the word. And so he was from San Fernando Valley, California, and he was quite happy with his herb, And so he says, he was stopping there while he was partaking, and I just said, all right, Simmendinger, we got to see what just happened up there. I said, I've been wanting to use this right here for a long time. And I had a M79 grenade launcher that I used to carry in between my seats. And so we didn't have a top on it. It was deucing half of that at the top. And so we had a bunch of stuff in the back. So I took the frag grenade out and put a shot grenade in there. And I had never fired it. Didn't know how it was, what I was going to happen or nothing. So we eased up there, and he just went real slow. And he was so excited about it. He couldn't wait. And I leveled that thing up over the top. And when I fired it,
just kind of lobbed it in there.
That's what it did. It just shot, boom. And it wasn't a whole lot of recoil or anything. That thing went off. And when it went off pretty close to the center of that thing. And there was nothing but clouds of feathers and ducks and everywhere. I don't know how many of them we killed, but they were laying all over the water, over the road. There were wounded ducks everywhere. So we stood up there and watched it for a little while. And he thought he'd died and gone to heaven. It was the best thing ever happened to him. He couldn't quit talking about it. And when we started on up the road, the village was about a half a mile away, and here come all the Vietnamese, from the village, and they were going by and they were bowing to us, They were going to get those ducks. So none of them went to waste, I'm sure. But I don't know how many. I don't know. We must have killed 40 or 50. I don't know how many. I mean, there was 200 or 300 in there, I'm sure. But it was feathers went everywhere. There were still feathers when we drove away. We pulled up there and stopped, and when we drove away, there were still feathers.
You know, there's probably an old Vietnamese man who's sitting around with his family some nights
Telling that story.
telling that story.
Oh, that's really funny. All right,
Famous, and even in Vietnam.
I hope they got to eat them all, because the ducks they were big ducks. They just look exactly like what our Scobie duck looks like. You know, a big old ugly Scobie duck.
Yeah,
big duck.
I don't know anything about a duck. I just know
you know
guys.
what a Scobie duck's like.
the white ones, right? The ones with the big funky.
Yeah,
stuff
they got
on the
a
face.
funky face. They're multicolored and stuff, but they're a big duck.
Yeah.
Well, that's I would have to call them that. They looked exactly like that. I don't know, but there was a whole pile of them went in there, but that pile got out.
Oh, that's a great story. The guys are going to love that one. All right, I got to sell something.
Yeah.
You got to keep this thing rolling.
Yeah.
TWs, they're really good to us. They give us free stuff.
Captain Frank's.
KW's is real good.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, they do. They take care of us, man.
Yeah.
Been there since day one. And Captain Frank's. H3, Harvey, who told me to ask you that story right there.
Yeah. Well, that's all.
If you see somebody in a store and you tell them who's a guest tonight, and they get excited and say, "Get them to tell you this story," you know half the game's already. All right, we're gonna go to a break. Come right back, and I'm gonna pepper you with questions. You're gonna come up with a trivia question too. All right.
Sounds good. Red button.
Misguided Fishing. Check it out. TW's got everything you need to catch all the fishes. The rods, the reels, string, baits, from all the guys that make that stuff. Shimano, Daiwa, Penn, St. Croix, Yoseria, Meat Hawk, etc., etc., etc. You want to look fly when you're doing all that catching? They got you covered with gear from Salty Crew, Pelagic, Extra Tough, and more. You got questions? Ask away. TW's is staffed by people who fish every chance they get. They got their finger on the pulse of Outer Banks fishing. I haven't even scratched the surface of this place. It's like a toy store for grown-ups. So check out TW's Bait and Tackle in Nags Head, the Outer Banks' largest tackle shop. Milepost 10. You think we know dogs? We don't know dogs. Captain Frank's? Yep, that Captain Frank's, the iconic hot dog restaurant on the Outer Banks, knows dogs. There is nobody else that comes close. Captain Frank's has been a local landmark since 1975. That's like 350 years in dog years. They have over 15 styles of hot dogs on the menu. If the dog isn't on the menu, they can make it. If you've had enough dogs this week, try the fried chicken sandwich, homemade chili, or chili cheese fries. If you go hungry, don't look at me. Captain Frank's Hot Dogs, Milepost 4.5 in Kitty Hawk. They know dogs. And now, back to Misguided Fishing.
Look at that. We're live again.
All right.
Thank you, TWs.
Thanks,
H3. Harvey, appreciate it.
H3.
H3. Oh, he had another question. He told me to ask you about why you ate for a month and a half straight cabbage when he was your roommate before you were going on a trip. He said you were trying to get.
Hey, don't be rude with you. I said you're a good man.
I've been
He said
I've dabbled in fad diets over the course of my life, trying to lose a quick few pounds. And at the time, the cabbage cleanse was a thing. And,
he said your apartment smelled like a Polish prison. That's what he said.
Yeah, and for several weeks, poor Harvey. I lived with Harvey.
Yeah, that's what he told me.
Roommates, and for poor Harvey, I ate and made big cauldrons full of cabbage soup for weeks on end, and ate that to lose weight.
He also said he couldn't wait for you to leave. He was pushing you out the door. You were coming up with excuses not to go, maybe, and he was.
That's not true. We had a great time.
He was getting ready for you to go.
He was probably ready. I was a bit of a train wreck at that time, but a lot of fun.
Yeah, easy to believe.
Yeah,
train wreck.
We had fun.
All right, Charles, you got a trivia question? Can we give something away?
Oh, sure. How many blacks over 1,000 do you think are weighed in?
How many black marlins over 1,000
black
pounds?
marlins all on the Barrier Reef?
Have you weighed?
That were weighed in that I was part of. Either I gaffed it, ran the boat, or wired them. Most of them I wired.
Okay, that's a great question. I don't have a clue. I don't. So you want the TW's gift card, rod combo, ballast gift pack? Get that one right.
Yep. Mine is going to be my first year as a mate. Won the Big Rock. What was the total payout for the boat? Not my cut. What was the total payout
for your boat? The boat you were on, not the whole tournament.
Yeah.
I got to start getting this straight because I messed up a couple weeks ago. Well, Bobby's question, he wanted to know how many gallons of water an oyster filters a day. He said that on here on the promo. I do a promo for I said how many gallons per hour. And then I called the guy who got it right for one of them, and another guy who got the other one right.
So you had to give 2 of them away.
He texted me or emailed me and said, "When are you going to announce it?" I said, "I already gave it away." He goes, "I got it right. How come? What do you mean? I was the first one to get it." And he's like 5 minutes in. This guy's, he's all into it. I think he fast forwards because he watches it on YouTube instead of on Instagram. So he fast forwards till he gets to the trivia question, I'm pretty sure. And he got it right, and I just blew him off. So I had to email him back saying, "Call me, I'll make it right."
Good on you.
Yeah, I mean, but I messed that up.
Yeah, that's okay. You do a lot, Donnie.
I do. It's all me because you add and bring nothing to the table. You absolutely add nothing. But I bet if we get paid for this, you're going to want half the money.
No, you don't have to give me half. 60%.
All right. So you got a question? Okay, we got the 2 questions.
Yeah,
I already
2
forgot
questions.
about yours. It was so meaningless.
Yeah, they're in there.
All right, payout.
This is what I get, Charles. Donnie
I told him. I said when we start the die, I just start insulting you, and you insult me. So the payout for Jack gets you a $50 gift card from Captain Frank's, which is a lot of hot dogs. Take a date.
Yeah,
take your children. Take a dog. I don't care. Get you some hot dogs. For Charles's, how many blacks over 1,000 caught on the Barrier Reef he was a part of?
That I was part of.
Yes. So that's a great question. All right. I'm going to start firing them at you. How many countries you've been to?
Wow, I have to think about that for a little bit. I got a.
How about to fish or to? Or
Yeah,
period?
fish. Yeah.
I've
Fishing podcast.
I've got a map on my wall in my shop that's got pins on all the places.
So
that I
too
fish.
many would be the answer.
And pardon? Well, no,
Too many.
No, not too many. I always like to go to somewhere new. But I've also got tax, and like one year I made a trip across the Pacific on that El Zorro trip, and so I left San Diego and fished there. We went to Hawaii, and then Hawaii down to Christmas Island. We worked our way across to the Barrier Reef, and so I fished all the way across that. So I've got a little string all the way. That places where I travel by boat, I've got a string between the map tacks.
That would have been a good picture to have.
But it was some of the islands that I went to was really fascinating. I mean, it was great. And
favorite place to.
oh wow,
I'm throwing them at you.
favorite place to fish is right here. I mean,
Second favorite place that you fished.
Probably, if you want to include the place too, not just fishing wise, but it was Madeira. Back when we fished Madeira, I guess in '94, '95, and those seasons we were fishing there was a lot of big fish, and the island's absolutely beautiful. It's lush green. You're fishing in the lee of the island, just like in Hawaii. It's in calm water. If you need anything you probably can think of that you would need for the boat, they have it on the island. Most people don't realize that Madeira has 800,000 people on the island.
Wow, I didn't realize that.
No, it's a big. It's not that big island, but it's that crowded. The town of Funchal goes forever. I mean, it just stands out forever, and it's really a beautiful, beautiful place, and the food's good. The people are nice. It's Madeira's really one of my favorite spots.
How about if you fished anywhere?
Ivory Coast of Africa was not.
That's where I'm going. What would be a place you did not feel safe fishing?
Well, traveling in and out of Ivory Coast of Africa, you didn't feel too safe. Once we got to where we were located, where we stayed at this place called Beta Serene's, a resort. The resort was probably as nice as any resort I've stayed at anywhere. You would never expect it to be in Africa, but and it was safe there. Of course, they had all kinds of people around with machine guns and stuff guarding the place, and I mean, you were safe as long as you were there. But when you but the going in and out of the airport and to restaurants in anywhere in Abidjan, I didn't feel like was really safe. I didn't care much for that, and that would probably be.
But the fishing was good.
At times, it could be really good, and it could be. We had 2 world records there.
Where was the video when Stewart went over? Where was that? Was that Ivory Coast?
Madeira.
That was Madeira. Oh, okay, that was Madeira.
It was in
really.
Madeira. And the fish that he had on that he went over.
That was a big fish.
That was a big fish, and it was, without a doubt, it would have been a world record on 30 because he had the record at the time. But it could have been over 1,000. Marky and I have looked at it, I don't know how many times.
Yeah.
And we both thought that it was bumping right at the 4-digit mark. You know, it was that big a fish. And if we hadn't have messed up, we really felt like we were going to catch a fish because the fish was doing exactly what we wanted it to do. You know, it'd start jumping, it would die out, and we'd stay right up with it. And I'd had that. I dumped the wire 6 times. That was the 7th time I had the wire. So, you know, each time I dump it, Mark would say, "We're doing the right thing. We're going to get this fish." You know, we really felt like we were going to get it.
And really, I mean, you talk about that record fishing. You did that for a long time with Stewart.
13 and a half years I fished with Barkey and Stewart for world record fishing, yeah. So that meant that my experience in Australia fishing with Peter Wright and Paul Whelan and guys like that were I considered hot dogs on fish. You know, they were roaring around and try to catch a fish as quick as we could and that sort of thing. All that experience was really helpful when I tried world record fishing, because you take any chance you get.
And like you said, 7 times, I mean, really, when, you know, 1,000-pound fish on 30-pound, you're the one, really, if you're getting that leader, the more you're getting the leader, the more tired the fish is getting, because you're the one that can actually put the actual pressure on the fish, right? I mean, you're going to tire it out quicker than Stewart is.
Yeah, no, it's I call it, probably shouldn't be saying it, but I call the world record fishing trick fishing, because you're trying to outsmart the fish. You're trying to get a quick shot at the fish, you know, and you can do that with heavy tackle, but with light tackle, you just got to be lucky. In other words, you got to keep trying those fish that are potential records until one makes a mistake. If the fish doesn't make a mistake, you're not going to catch it, because they got the advantage. And so it's all just doing it over and over until one of them makes a mistake, and then you got to have a crew that's capable of taking advantage of that mistake.
Yeah, and it's dangerous. I mean, it can be dangerous when you're sticking gas in a big green
every
fish
time
like that.
it's dangerous.
Yeah,
it's not can be, it is.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's dangerous on 130-pound tackle, you know, for a lot of times.
Yeah, when you wear one out, it's still got potential to be dangerous there.
yeah.
How many billfish over 1,000?
How many what?
Billfish over 1,000 have you caught?
I'd be giving away some of my secrets.
I thought
I've caught a few blue ones over 1,000.
Yeah, that's why I felt like. I mean, I know that.
And you probably caught some that you released that you caught 1,000 too.
I'm sure that the last few years that I fished in Australia, we released a lot of fish. Well, I say a lot. There was a few fish each year that I felt like, and by then, they had a pretty good idea. But if we thought there were 1,000, they were always 990. How big was that fish? 990.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly.
And so, but there was Barkey's sister caught one on the Arene with Jose Luis was running the boat, and I was wiring the fish, and I really felt like that fish would have been I felt bad about it, but she didn't feel comfortable enough hooking the fish, so she said, if the big fish comes up, I want you to hook it. She wanted to catch it, you know, so I jumped down and hooked the fish and put the rod in the chair for her, and she caught the fish, and we got it up there. If she had done it, it would have probably been a woman's world record.
Right.
And I told her, I said, we got to turn this fish loose, and Jose Luis wanted to turn it loose. She did too. She said it didn't matter if it was a world record or not. I wanted to turn it loose. So, it made me feel a little bit better, but felt bad hooking a fish for her. And because she had said she wanted me to do it, you know. She's quite an angler, but she hadn't done it in quite a long time at that time.
What year? First blue marlin?
Wow.
Or black one, whichever you caught the first.
I caught blue marlin out of Oregon Inlet first, but I'm trying to think if I caught one. I used to freelance with Lee, my cousin, and my Uncle Milton, and my daddy didn't fish offshore, see, he just fished around the inlet, so I'd freelance, and I really had to stay working with my father because he was like, it was like a grandfather-grandson relationship. He was a lot older. When I was 6 years old, he was 61.
Oh, wow.
And so I had to kind of stay and help take care of the boat and help him. So I really didn't start fishing offshore full time until I was 14. And I fished with Murray Cudworth. And that first year that Murray and I fished, we caught 20. We were top boat with 25 blue marlin that season.
Wow. And
it was a Marty Moe, and it was a slow boat. And we caught half of them. We caught 13 of them going back and forth, trolling lures at 13 knots.
That's where they live in there.
They do.
They do. They're in their shallows sometimes.
My mother's fish was in 20 fathoms, yeah.
That was one of that post you made the other day. And the one, I've done a lot of goals that I set for myself in this industry I've accomplished. One of which was backing down on the blue marlin and Charles Perry wiring that fish, which happened
that was
on
fun, yeah.
Well, yeah, which was on the day we brought Jonathan's ashes out. I mean, one of the most memorable days of my life.
Yep.
But one thing I haven't done yet is catch my mother a blue marlin. And that's really, I mean, there's a lot of things I still want to do, but not necessarily goals.
Yeah.
And that is one that, I mean, when I saw that picture, I almost teared up the other day because I want to get my mom a blue marlin so bad.
I asked the owners of the boat, because they let me stay here because I was traveling with the boat up and down there. And after they fish a Hatteras tournament, they let me come to Oregon Inlet, keep the boat there for a week or so, 10 days, so I'd be at home. Then I'd go up to Beach Haven, New Jersey, is where we based out of in the summertime. And so I asked him if I could take my mom fishing one day. I'd pay for the fuel. And Donald Leake said, "You're not paying for any fuel. You take your mama fishing. Go right ahead." So, of course, we went out there and we ended up catching that fish. And his wife said, "Yeah, you can catch a big fish for your mama. You can't catch one for me." I caught a lot of heat over that fish, but it was great. And most people, when they're cranking on the fish, I tell them to, you got to wind, and you stay right on them to keep winding. Mama was saying, "Mama, take it easy. I was afraid she was going to have a heart attack." She was so excited. And,
I know the old Senator, I think, was the reel.
No, we had a decent reel. We had a pin reel.
Okay, was it a pin? It was hard to, older picture, but that's pretty cool.
It was good. We had a good time. And the girl I was dating at the time was taking a lot of photographs, so I got a lot of great photographs of that.
Really?
Memories of that, yeah.
That's killer.
Yeah, that was good.
Do you even care what you catch, inshore, offshore? Does it even matter to what you? You're just one of those guys who just love to catch.
Oh yeah, I just like to catch them. Whatever it is, I enjoy catching fish regardless. And
snobbery. Tell him that.
He was mad at me the other day. We went bluefin fishing the day before Christmas Eve, and it was just unbelievable. I mean,
that was as pretty a fishing as you
was that when you called and asked me if I wanted one?
Yeah. That was when I called you, asked you if you wanted tuna. And anyway, I told my wife I was going fishing and everything like that, and I would try and get one and get home. You know what I mean? And anyway, I had to just say, "Guys, I got to go. It's time to go." And everybody
Joe
was
was
like,
ready to go too.
Joe supports me. So,
yeah.
But we were casting hookless poppers to him, Donnie.
Oh,
hookless poppers, and they were just
with no hooks on it. It was great.
Boat out of gear, fish swimming down the change, going on the poppers.
Yeah, you look in, and it wasn't much sea. 2 or 3 foot is all, and you'd see them coming down that 4 and 5 at a time.
Keep going.
It was great.
And nobody's found them like that since.
Yeah, that's what I hear.
We haven't found them since. Who are you talking to, Donnie?
My wife just called. Let me get it. She called twice, so it must be.
That's important.
Oh, okay. All right. So Charles, I'm going to ask you, favorite. What? I know you've had so many experiences, but like, what would be, your record fishing with Stewart, your Australia fishing? I mean, is there a time in your fishing career that you look back like that was where that was it? That was the time that I remember that was the best, the most fun, the most memorable, or whatever. For me, it's the Great Barrier Reef.
Well, it would be that too, except every fish there's been.
Or would it be a certain fish?
Sound like it, but there's been so many opportunities, or so many times that it's been just off the charts in excitement, adrenaline rush, and that sort of thing. That I kept journals for about 6 or 7 years of my life, and write 1 page a day, and I'm beginning to read those now because I'm trying to put a book together of my fishing experiences and a lot of fishing stories. And when I'm reading that thing, I haven't reread it, but just a couple of them. And when I read parts that I bring back, stories that I'd forgotten all about. So there's so many of them, it's hard to say. But all of the fish that we caught with Stewart that we were, that were record fish, they're all exciting.
Yeah.
I mean, when you have a fish on and you capture it in a short period of time, it's a wild thing.
And probably some that you didn't catch
That's exactly right. There's a lot of people said, you caught all those 1,000-pounders, yeah, but some of those 700-800 pounders will just
on 30 pound or something like that.
You out there. So it's they're all exciting. Some are more exciting than others, but there's none of them that's not exciting as far as I'm concerned.
And it never. A blue marlin or a black or anyway, it's crazy how it just never gets old.
No,
it gets better.
Yeah,
I mean,
it does every time. When it gets so it's not exciting anymore, it's time for you to.
I don't see how it wouldn't. I mean, it's a drug. It is.
That's what I told people. I said when I first went to Australia that first year, I said, when I went there and found out about it the first time I went to Australia, of course I was riding a unicycle with a backpack. And that was crazy in itself. But when I got up to Cairns and found out about I'd missed the season. I got up there in December and the season was over. And Peter Bristow and Gordon Hellum were there. And they started, I met them at the pub, and they started showing me photos of the fish they were catching. And I'd caught enough blue marlin. I knew good and well that these fish are 700, 800, 900 pound fish, these pictures. And I said, I don't know how I'm going to do it, guys, but I'll be here next year. And I said, I hope I can find a job. Well, I came back that first year that I fished there. I got there and fished the whole season with Charlie Hayden on the Panawanica. And then after that, I would line up somebody to fish with the next year every time, so that I could end up getting a chance to come back. And I'd go home and I'd say, well, I can't really afford that, because back then the round trip ticket was about $3,000,
wow.
And so that
more
was,
than it is now.
Yeah, that's a lot. It was, and that was a lot more money then too. 3,000 was a lot. And one year I even borrowed money, which I hated borrowing money, but I borrowed money to go, because it get close to September and I keep thinking about it and I say, no, I got to go. It was like a drug. You're right. I'm not addicted to a lot of things, but I was addicted to that.
Yeah.
I had to catch those big fish. It just, it had me.
All right, guys, we're gonna have to wrap it up. We are rolling late.
We can keep going. Too.
I gotta get going.
All right, no worries.
All right, without a doubt, what a great show.
Well,
I
come on.
greatly appreciate you being here.
No worries.
You did
Glad to do
good.
it.
You did good.
Thank you.
All right, all right. Charles Perry, been everywhere.
Yeah,
All right, Jack Aficionado, Donnie D, DOA, Misguided Fishing. Check us out on YouTube, Spotify,
Apple Podcasts.
And what's the name of it?
Misguided Fishing.
Misguided Fishing. All right.
Misguided Fishing has been brought to you by TW's Bait and Tackle, Nag's Head. Thanks everybody for watching, for listening. We'll see you next time.